once.
Yes.
Happy New Year!
Not quite. Whoops. Hello everyone, and welcome.
You didn't send us the chat.
Pardon?
You didn't send us the chat.
I did.
Oh, it's there.
Wake up.
Yeah.
No, you didn't. No, you didn't.
Wake up. Sorry, I am out of practice. I haven't done this in a while, but welcome back everyone to another stream. Today we will be covering the Chapter 13 units that have released a couple weeks ago. Joining me today is the usual folks, starting with Milk.
Hello.
Irby.
Hello.
And Zalgus.
Hi.
Very quick response, guys. Well, without further ado, let's just jump into the units. So today we will be starting off with Taishakuten, which is a Blow Ether unit in both its forms, I believe. And what he does is, I'm not sure if I'd call it niche, because like you might not even use him in his best niche, but essentially, what he does is, I would say the main thing you'd want to use him for is to mitigate all range damage. Whenever he moves, he has a guaranteed rate of bestowing to units 1 square around him a buff that makes his allies as well as himself resistant to all range damage, whether it's native all range or weapon change all range, to just 1/10 of its original damage. Besides that, you may want to use him also for as a damage dealer, although not very effective, honestly. He can concentrate the enemy's damage and then penalize them thereafter. What I mean by this is he's just a limit guts user, so you know the deal. You want him to reduce his HP as close to 0 as possible, and he'll survive even if he reaches 0 because he starts off with guts every phase start. And when he moves, he can bestow himself limit, also at a guaranteed rate, which is nice. And he can also re-bestow himself guts if he gets his charge, which he has a bit of help with that from his CP whenever he is hit to himself. And he can concentrate the enemy's damage by bestowing to them blow range change for 3 turns. So it's the same length as Charm, but it's a buff. And presuming they're not immune to it, then you can force them to concentrate all their damage towards Taishakuten rather than the entire team. And he also has an advantage against blow range weapon change, which is good for his damage dealing purposes, although I would say even when he's at his most optimal, where he is at 1 HP only, and he has a limit, and he has blow advantage, or weapon change blow advantage, he doesn't do that much damage, honestly. It's just a 21,000 damage, which is not amazing for a lot of work being put in to just reach that amount of HP. In addition, he is a zone maintainer, which just means that he doesn't push the zone, but he also prevents the enemy from pushing it towards you. He bestows anchor to everyone, including himself, on phase start, so kind of like Seth. He also pulls enemies in so that they remain in the intersection of zones whenever he's hit. And he can tank a bit with protection to his allies 1 square around whenever he attacks, which can help him defend the line a bit better. And on charge, he also just paralyzes the targets, preventing them from moving anymore, which again is supported by whenever he's hit, just get a bit more CP, which is not an amazing rate, and it's not an amazing amount of CP, but it's there. And for some reason, he also resists all weapon change, which doesn't really play at all into the rest of his kit, but what can you say? But yeah, my recommendations, actually, before we get into that, what do you guys think about him?
He's kind of shit.
I think that he's hot, but his kit is shit.
And
not useful at all. I mean, if you take into account the fact that his all range resistance makes everyone take 1/10 of the damage, you can get the equivalent without having to move anyone. With a better kit, It's not quite the same. You'll be taking a lot more damage, but you can get 1/5 damage reduction from by just using Taishakuten for the entire activity, and you don't have to deal with them. So I think it's kind of shit. Yes, because it's only for all ranged weapons. It doesn't have any sort of protection outside guts for himself. For any other weapon change. So as soon as he changes the enemy he's hitting to blow, since he doesn't have enough damage, he's going to get hit back and probably going to trigger his own guts immediately. So yeah, it's pretty shit.
Yeah, I really don't know what they were thinking with him. It's like he takes like a bunch of minor parts of other kids and just makes them terrible for the most part. Like, and not only that, but his attack stat is atrocious. It's one of the worst in the game, and he's one of the few characters who loses attack when he goes up in rarity, and he's supposed to be billed as some sort of attacker, like, and he loses quite a lot of attack. Like, he loses 800 or something. Like, why? His attack wasn't that high anyway, so to make it worse is a big question mark.
Obviously, so that he can have higher HP, so that he can tank with his guts.
The higher HP is worse anyway, because it makes limit harder.
That's not how tanking works.
It makes limit harder.
Didn't we have this like illogical stat distribution with Enigma recently? LifeWonders is onto something.
Yeah, this is the next gen kits.
Yeah, can they please stop making like a throwaway unit each banner? I thought we were done with throwaway units.
Yeah. This unit is something. I think the main argument against ever using him is that Licho exists, because he can also bestow a weapon change to blow, and he does it at a much larger range. So the only reason...
And he curses, and he skill locks, and he has personal defense, both tenacity.
Yeah, weapon changing to blow is a big deal. It's mostly for the skill lock, in my opinion, at least.
Well,
so,
I think it's
weapon changing to blow one weapon is useless.
So since I'm responsible for this unit, I tried to give him the benefit of the doubt and tried to see when he'd actually be useful. He does have a couple of use cases where you could just use Licho too. For example, you could do this when the enemies are resistant to charm but not weapon change blow, which I don't know when that will happen, but it might. And you can also use Taishakuten when the enemies have some kind of debuff mitigation, but you can also Licho in this case. There's a couple of cases where you can use Taishakuten where Licho wouldn't be as good though. And that would be when enemies activate certain strong skills when they're debuffed. Because Taishakuten only gives the buff blow, he doesn't have to worry about activating any debuffs unless he charges. And that's for similar reasons, he would also be more appropriate if the enemies spread debuffs back to your team. For example, if you're facing a Valsaslav. And in addition to that, the main use of him, I would say, if you're not forcing that damage dealer rule or that low range change, is just being able to resist all range, which is, it's a pretty good defense buff. It's rather situational because enemies really are a threat with all range. In the cases where you do want to use it, it would be if the enemies have a predictable time of when they'll get their charge, such as if you're facing Perrin or Tindalos, things like that. You may also want to pair him with Isaac in cases where the enemy is immune to possession, because if the enemy is immune to possession, then they'll still be able to attack you with the all range change they were just bestowed, and then you can resist that with Taishakuten. So a bit of a gimmick there. I'm not sure how useful that would be. And of course, you can just use them if the enemies have a regular attack, being all range charge. Or not all range charge, just all range regular attack. For ARs, I would recommend the Goemon Seth pulling AR so that he can actually reach his enemies, or the Asterios Taurus Mask pulling AR. You may also want to give him a bit more range with the Naja Tetsuax movement expansion AR, or the Abarga Arsalan break AR to immobilize the enemies and keep them in place to force them to keep on hitting Taishakuten, because that's kind of his role. Even in his research profile, he says something about concentrating like the damage from the gods or something. I forget what it's like, but it makes sense based on his
damage from natural disasters.
Yeah, something like that. So keep them in place so that they'll keep on hitting him, so that he'll bottom out his HP faster and get his maximum 21,000 damage a bit faster, I guess.
Just on Copium, that the reason why his kit is so bad is because LifeWonders is actually planning to give him a skill evolution as the chapter progresses.
The Copium is real.
Let's go. The Copium is real.
Alright.
I feel like this kit was designed around.
Sorry, can you speak closer to the mic, Milk?
I feel like this kit was designed around killing Mugen Rakan. Like bringing him closer and just like destroying him with like one punch. But it's like not really that useful. I don't know. Like this weapon change immunity is just so weird. I thought like you could try to like do a meme where you like change him from blow to something else, but no. Yeah.
Yeah, it's very, very situational when it'll be useful. You know, with that said, maybe LifeWonders will do an after-the-fact thing where he becomes useful later when they release quests that are designed for him.
I mean, I feel like whenever they have all range attackers anyway, it's less the damage that's the problem, but getting hit by whatever horrible debuff or flat damage that they're going to do, which that's not going to help against it. Like, I mean, sometimes they just have the explosive power of an all-range attack, but still, it's not always going to even counter that.
Yeah, that's the majority of the time. And actually, we already did have the mission where we have a special support to use him on that mission. And he wasn't particularly good for it either. So
spoiler.
Even on the missions that you're supposed to bring him, yeah, he's not useful.
Well,
you could achieve most of what he does with other characters. Just use someone else.
Yeah, you could.
I don't even think there's any all-range enemies.
Okay, thank you for that spoiler, Irby. Well, just
yes, you've been spoiled about a very easy mission.
How could you do this to me? Okay, I'm gonna read up the comments and then we can move on to the next unit. Hello, Stream Elements. Thank you for running and keep my stream up. By the way, the 8-ball command works if any of you are familiar with it. I think it works anyways. I haven't tested it, but hello, Edwin. Nice to see you. Hello, guys. Tai needs a very specific mission to be useful. Yeah, he's not useful in generality, but so we'll need to see LifeWonders to create missions after the fact that makes him useful. Hello, Gale, and hello, Zui. Irby, your audio's bad. Yeah, that's pretty much the common theme of all discussions. Sorry, Irby. Wait, does Anchor block pulling and pushing? Yes, that is the gimmick of Anchor. It prevents a forced movement, whether it's forced movement that comes from the enemy or from your own team. I have the feeling that Taishakuten is one of those units that'll be more annoying as an enemy than anything else. Well, he has to move for his all-ranged resistance, so as long as you can blow him up on one turn, he still won't be much of a threat. And hello, Godly Raggle. Alright, those are all the comments, so let us just move on to the next unit, which I believe is Isaac, covered by Milk.
Yes. I am covering Isaac. Okay. So, let me see if the thing changed. Did it change already?
Yes, it did.
Okay, so Isaac is the 4-star banner 4-star unit on this banner as well, and he's a World Nun unit in his 4-star. His first skill, he has this drastic skill activation. Huh?
Sorry,
What?
go ahead. I got distracted for a second. Go ahead.
Oh, okay. So, his first skill, he appears with a drastic skill activation rate increase. This effectively boosts his stuff by 60% for 9 turns, but it's really 8 turns since it's a when appearing effect. And LifeWonders restricts his movement so that he can't move at all normally. And he also loses HP every turn, but he also gains HP if he remains stationary. And by stationary, this means that he can't be shuffled or like dragged along by the player or another unit that's being held if you want the skills to activate. So if you do like move him in any way, then the if stationary skills will not activate. Okay. The next skill is that he applies really confusion to enemies on the entire board, and gives all of your allies Mecha Man, and himself Mecha Man as well. So this is kind of like a pretty good defensive skill in my opinion. And what's really meaty about his kit is in his next skill, which if he remains stationary, he can apply protection to really your allies and gives CP to allies in this really weird range. Aura can show that eventually. And he can also get a free phase start protection to himself and allies every start of the phase. And his last skill, he gets reflex debuff to himself every turn, and he can also have a chance of applying concentration to allies once we're around himself. And he has this minor smoking god dropping being hit flat damage to units. Okay. And the final last thing about this kit is this really strong CS, which applies to the entire in an all range, possession, weapon change all, and doubt, and you also get defense up to allies, or once we're around him. So what that means is that if you get his charge skill to go off, he will change all of his enemies' weapons to all, and if they're possessed, they will all attack each other for really big amounts of damage due to doubt, hopefully. And if they aren't possessed, they will attack you, but it's going to be at a really low damage multiplier because it's all range and they also have doubt. So that's a 0.1 and another 0.1. So this is an extremely good CS, in my opinion. But the only way he has it naturally to obtain it is through his if stationary CP skill, which he can only get plus 10 every turn. So he'll need some external help if you want to get this CS up. Okay, so my overall thoughts about this unit is that this is basically Soul but 8 turns long, where he can apply protection to his allies, not really himself except for the phase start part, and it pretty much lasts 8 turns long. So that was kind of like the inspiration of me using the hero with him, because that's exactly 2 cycles of the hero's CS loop, in which I did it in the Invaders challenge quest. And honestly, his defense is actually really good for like being an 8-turn soul. Like, as much as I don't really like Mecha Man in combination with his like really wide range protection, controlling the enemy movement with confusion on the entire board, is honestly really good. And even if he lacks like defense himself, do not really applying protection to himself when he's stationary. I don't know, like him being naturally whirled makes it so that it's not really that much of an issue. At least I didn't really see much issue with him tanking. So, yeah. That's pretty much all I have to say, except maybe I should mention more about the rates. Is that because once he loses the drastic skill activation rate increase, he basically becomes useless since his skill rates are so low naturally. It's like 30%, 40%. But with the rate increase, it becomes near like 190, and concentration is at 70. So the concentration rate is not something that I really like, but it's kind of nice to have more people who can buff concentration. And I guess I should mention something about ARs. My personal AR that I think is interesting is this Ball Ortez AR, because it gives a skill activation rate increase of like 30%, which stacks with his kit. If he has 100 CP basically. And that'll basically guarantee his stationary skills, which is really nice actually. But the problem is that getting him to 100 CP needs a bit of work, so yeah, that's something you have to think about. So yeah, there's other like general recommendations that you can do, but pretty much the only one that you don't want to bring is that Kotaro and Vari AR, because he can't move at all.
Yeah. I do think you hit pretty much all the points. It's worth noting that it's impossible for him to get his charge if he doesn't have help with CP, since he only gets the 10 CP for 8 turns, and he doesn't get any CP when he's hit because he's non-range. So that means he'll only get 80 CP at most for the first 8 turns, and it's like extremely low rate to get the last 20% for any turns after that. And also waiting for 8 turns is kind of
20%.
Yeah, no. I mean, you know, if you're making a video, I guess nothing's stopping you. But it's
I'm not doing that.
You gotta wait way too long anyways for it to be effective. 8 turns, so pretty much you'll want to bring a lot of CP batteries or strong ones. And yeah, I would say he's quite the strong tank too for mech-mans, whatever, but in combination with protection, which is near guaranteed, and also defense up if you have him at a sacred, high sacred artifact level with his charge. He gives us 3 defense ups, which is quite respectable for giving to the entire team.
Actually, I did have one more comment. Is that kind of funny is that since his skill activation rate increases when appearing, one thing that you can do is put him in sub slot to like cover, to like just basically join the battle and start tanking. So in my Isaac clear, I wanted to get like my 8 turn Isaac to just like die, and then get a support Isaac to join back in and replace him. I thought it would be funny, but I didn't pull Isaac 4, so I couldn't do it.
I'm glad I did get Isaac 4.
I didn't really.
One of the sad things about Isaac though is I can't really get his charge up on 1 turn because he can't equip any ARs that give CP, which is really sad.
Yeah. Is that the?
He doesn't have any of the
3-star
ones that give 10 CP.
I don't know. I don't really think it's worth trying to make him into a null range CS spammer because it's not gonna happen. And and I'm pretty much content with the with the rest of his kit. It's a really good defensive kit, and I'm kind of glad that people are finally seeing that Mega Man isn't really so bad in junction with other things. I think it's I never had an issue with it. I mean, it's a pretty bad it's pretty bad rates, but usually they add it so that in combination with the rest of the kit, it adds a bit of an extra layer of protection. And with Isaac's kit, it really shows that it makes people really, really tanky with the extra protection as well.
Yeah,
I was just gonna say that it does proc more often than it appears to, because when you're tanking, you're not only taking one hit per turn. That was all I was going to say.
Yeah, I was just gonna say that Enigma is still shit, despite what Irby is saying. So
yes, I didn't mean to say that Enigma was good. No.
Yeah, I was just kind of amused by the fact that, like, you know, LifeWonders should release Enigma, and then they just release Isaac, who, like, has this, like, really stupid CS and, like, all this defense stuff, and it's in that weird, like, target reticle, like, semi 3 radius range. It's just like, I don't, like, understand why they had to do that.
It's
But,
like,
yeah.
you're talking about the near range, right? I'd say it's like, it just makes it likelier for them to.
No,
Oh, sorry.
no, not the range, but like it's not the range, but why they even bothered with Enigma, where they're just gonna release Isaac, who can, like, you know, buff from the opposite side of the map, basically.
I think, like, the idea behind Enigma is you're supposed to put two Enigmas beside each
There's
other,
no idea.
like an Enigma machine, I guess. I don't know. So that they just constantly
The
give each
idea
other
of
defense
Enigma
buffs.
is that the idea of Enigma is to point out the irony that Enigma is always trash talking towards us, and he's the actual trash in combat. It's very sad.
There's a very important lesson there somewhere.
Maybe he'll.
Yes, there is.
Maybe we have to decode his real use, just like the Enigma code.
One of these days. Again, you know, even when Enigma's kind of shit on release, he's one of those units that has the potential to get stronger as more mechanics release in the game.
Out.
Okay.
Opium.
Alright.
that is real copium.
Anyway, do you guys have any other thoughts?
I do like this confusion to the entire board,
Oh, yeah,
because we don't actually get that any instant disabling effects for the entire board. In fact, we rarely get debuffs to the entire board as soon as the phase starts. There's only a few people who do it. Like, offhandedly, I can only think of Christmas Melusine, and we already know how bad she is. There are a few people with unique debuffs like Fushi, but I don't know if we've had one besides Oppression, where the person just immediately hinders the entire enemy board's movement, like Isaac. And Confusion lasts a while, so it lasts, like, I guess it'll last 2 turns because of the. Will it last 2 or 3 turns?
It'll last
If it's phase
2
start.
effective turns, because Confusion lasts for 3 turns, right?
Yes.
And it'll go down, it'll take down by 1 the moment the enemy attacks, which is when Confusion actually works.
Okay. But yeah, I think having it hit the entire board is really quite useful, and will probably definitely mess with the AI of the enemy, or I don't know if I would say mess with the AI, but maybe ruin their formation if they can't move side.
Yeah, it's actually really useful for me in the Invaders challenge quest, just because I had to tank Fushi and everybody, and because of non-obstruct weakening, just having, like, that security that, I don't know, that the agents only move up and down is really nice, because if Fushi moved left and right, I was gonna die.
Yeah.
Yeah. Honestly, I think this is probably the best unit of the banner, in my opinion.
His charge by itself
because
was incredible.
it is. I think it has a lot. I mean, even though it's only 8 turns, I don't think even challenge quests can usually take that long.
Depends on the strategy you take.
They can.
It's like he's good for medium length games because honestly, it's like I'd say short range games are under 6 turns long, maybe even just 5 turns. And those are when you just bank everything on blowing everyone up instantly. If you get into defensive though, sometimes it gets up to 20 turns or even 100 if you're going for a shit meme. So, but if you're
now that most missions only have like 1 or 2 phases, or 3 at max, it should be fine.
If you're not going for like a shit meme, then Isaac would be good as an in-betweener, since he does also give concentration too, even if it's not at the best rate. So good for both defensive purposes, primarily defensive, but also a bit of offense too.
I really like I forgot to say this, but I like the concentration range a lot. It's a lot better than having to use Masanori's directly adjacent concentration at the same rate, so it's pretty nice.
Yeah, but who uses Masanori? Just kidding, I use Masanori, but just not for concentration. There's a few other thoughts I'd like to add. Since, as Zalgus said, Confusion instantly is really good, and since, as Milk said, his charge is really good to his position in doubt, obviously the natural choice Spring is Durong to maintain those debuffs, and you'll be hearing me mention Durong in every single discussion from now on. Get ready for that. And I would also say, if you're going to actually be tanking with Isaac for your team, you should definitely bring a healer as well, since he does not heal his team. And he provides so much defense buffs, it would be a shame to fully realize that tank function without that healing. And lastly, I also, if you're not going for a meme strategy with putting Isaac in the sub slots, like Milk said, then if you want to bring your allies closer to enjoy those base start abilities, you may want to bring Boogeyman along so that you can actually bring him closer without breaking the condition of being stationary. Those are all my thoughts on him.
Is this where I say meme use Smoky God?
No.
If you refuse to if like
it would only guarantee protection. Actually, what's his rate up? It's only 30%, right? Or is it 50?
I don't know.
Anyways, that's not even as high as Isaac's native one, so it wouldn't even be as good.
It's 50.
Yeah.
All right. Well,
yeah, you can use it so that when his thing runs out, you still have most of the buff effects, but only for 1 turn.
Yeah.
Just stop. Just stop.
And now you have 2 Smoky God HP reduction units.
Just stop. Okay, please. Just go ahead and read
also,
the comments.
No, but pair him with Nightglow's Kuragane so he can move.
Nightglow's Kuragane?
You can.
He gives expansion to everyone.
Oh, right. You don't want to move him though.
Yeah, you can do that. Well, if you had the Kotaro AR, then yeah, you do want to move him.
Oh yeah, that is the big brain strat to use that Kotaro AR to gain 50 CP at a very low rate.
Also, like the Kotaro's amount of CP it gets.
Yeah, it's a bad AR. Well, I mean, in theory, if it triggered every time, it would be great, but its rate is comically low.
So some ARs are designed for damage dealers, but that need multiple rolls to do. Those ones always make me like question mark, question mark, question mark.
Yeah. Well, so yeah, I'm pretty happy with this unit. I only pulled this 3-star, but it seemed pretty good at a glance. So I will go read the comments now.
Yes, do that.
And there's nothing questionable like last time with Perun. 8-ball, you lied to me. Pensive. Name taker, the 8-ball says mayhaps. Isaac after turn 9, adios. Isaac, my son. Impatient Irby, sus. I must say this, Isaac is one of the best art style units right now, top 3 for me.
I will say
know about
he
art
does the
style.
pose a lot better than Claude does. Like he is doing the same pose kind of as Claude 5, but I'd say Isaac looks far cooler with him looking kind of foreboding and also big brain mastermind with his like thing.
Orb
Yes.
thing, yeah.
Also,
Yeah.
please speak closer to the mic again. Okay. And voice up.
Oh, it was just because I was looking at Isaac's art
Ah,
after the art
okay.
style. Yeah. What is next? Yes, Isaac needs CP support. At least he also supports his team. You don't really need CP support unless you chase after that CS, because I personally don't think that the CS is like completely reliable, because if the enemy kills like an enemy who hasn't attacked yet, they don't attack, which is kind of bad. But yeah, so if you do play around with that CS, you have to watch out for stuff like that. So he basically Linan, but for a defensive buff. Oh, what do I say to this? I mean,
You could just say no.
I guess you can call everybody Linan, but you know, they attack or stuff like that. I don't know. If that's how you understand it, then good for you. Is he special glint stuck with normal glint? Stack. Yeah, it stacks. Everything in this game stacks if they are a different status. Enigma's time will come, Polar Bear. Any good units good well with him. All board confusion every phase seems strong on paper. Yeah, it's pretty strong. Any good units?
Juron.
Yeah. I think also Cthulhu might be good, just because you're giving out like protection and concentration and that your removable buff. That would also be good. He's good with hero because of that cycle that I mentioned. What else? Just pretty much anybody you want to tank with. J Kagu for CP charging, I guess. I don't know. Is anybody gonna use like Christmas Ryota with him? Probably not. Okay. I wish LifeWonders will make an AR for easier blossom grinding. No. That's not gonna happen anytime soon. Still waiting for someone to make a CS spam line. CS spam Isaac meme team. It can happen, but you have to put some effort. Like, you have to do like... And it's not really... It doesn't really clear the entire board either. But it's pretty strong. Okay, that's it.
They kind of already did make an AR for easier blossom grinding with the guts removal AR. I can't believe they added that thing.
I hope whenever they
yeah.
release the Blossom Booster AR, presuming that will exist, it will also contribute significantly to making those quests easier.
Yeah. You don't even play that right. Like,
no.
still not yet.
I just do the
Yeah.
thing, so it's relevant to me right now.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay.
Yeah, because Chapter 12 didn't fully release yet, so you still haven't had them, right?
Alright, we shall just move on to the next one. I think we're lingering a bit long on Isaac now. You can read those comments after Irby, who is talking next, with Ulaanbaatar.
Right. The Guy Fieri guy. Okay.
Sorry, it's Ulaanbaatar, not Ulaanbaatar.
Ulaanbaatar. Whatever. Ulan. I'll just call him Ulan.
Alright.
Ulan is essentially debuff prevention and debuff cleanser unit. He applies nullify debuff every time he attacks, and also removes debuffs to allies adjacent to himself. It's all to allies adjacent. Unfortunately, none of his abilities are actually in a 1 square radius, which is sad. It's all adjacent, but it's still pretty nice. He also has this this neat ability that gives him essentially a crit plus multiplier every time he has Nullify debuff up, which is pretty nice because he does apply Nullify debuff to himself every time he attacks, and also has an additional Nullify debuff every 3 turns. This is just a safety net to guarantee he has Nullify debuff, even despite the enemies attacking you and applying a debuff and immediately cleansing it. That means that at that turn, you're guaranteed to have the Nullify debuff right at the start of that turn. So that's pretty nice. Unfortunately, the problem with this Nullify debuff strengthening is that since he's mostly going to be your cleanser unit, debuff cleanser unit, it means you're going to want this Nullify debuff effect to be consumed by the debuff to prevent it. So what it's going to mean is that his damage is not going to be very consistent if you bring to a battle that a lot of enemies with a lot of debuffs. But he has also other things to help with that. That with that being said, that also doesn't matter. You're going to bring him primarily, seemingly, if you want to bring him primarily for the debuff prevention, not the damage, which he can do a pretty significant amount on his own, actually. And he also pierces all defense buffs, so that's pretty nice. He also has this weird J Kagutsuchi ability that makes him bestow CP to himself and all his allies every time he receives a buff, but it's only at 60%, so it's not guaranteed, but it's still a pretty high rate for an after buff effect, and he has a lot of buffs that he can apply to himself, especially when he's going to be constantly applying the Nullify debuff on himself, and it's going to get removed, and he's going to apply it again. So that's pretty nice. He's going to have a pretty neat CP charging capability. On top of that, he also bestows a lot of resistance buffs. He bestows burn resistance to himself and allies, break resistance, and fear resistance. All of these to himself and allies at both pretty high rates. Not guaranteed, but you get that's what you get. So these are already three buff resistances that he's going to have innately when he moves. And on top of that, he also applies Spirit. And when he appears, he also gains a movement expansion for 1 turn. It says 2 turns, but it's only 1 turn because it's when appearing. So this is going to give him a very high amount of CP bestowal on the very first turn, as these are a lot of buffs that he bestows to himself.
Yeah,
right off the bat.
He gives 8 different buffs, excluding crit, to himself.
Yeah, especially if we count the Nullify debuff, strengthening it also counts as a buff that he gives to himself. He also has innate immunities to Possession, Doubt, Obstruct, and Confusion. These are pretty good immunities to have, especially Confusion and Obstruct, because you're... Well, actually, maybe I should start with the Confusion part, because basically you're going to want to always move him, because if you don't move him, it means that or if you don't drag along, you're going to change time when he's stationary. So that means he's not going to be able to bestow Nullify debuff to himself, or remove debuffs from allies, which is his primary function. So you generally don't want that, although he does have an additional function in the case that happened, which is 70% rate charms to enemies in slash range. But I don't think that's really useful. So please don't ever try to go for that.
It could be useful. Charm is a strong
yeah.
effect. Just obviously not something
Just use
relevant.
Heartland. Just use.
All right, then.
It's okay. It's not really why you should bring him along. His CS, he changes to sniper range and removes all debuffs to himself and allies one square around himself, which is pretty great. And he applies nullify debuff to himself and allies all around himself, and applies crit. This is additional two buffs that he's going to bestow to himself. So that's another potential 20 CP on CS on top of the buffs he already bestows already on move if they have run out. So that's pretty nice, especially when you're in a fight where the enemies give debuffs after being hit. So that means that he's going to consume the nullify debuff and is going to gain another right after that. So he's got some pretty neat CP charging capabilities and a pretty nice debuff cleansing kit and debuff prevention. I think his main issue is that, well, if he gets oppressed or something like that, that's going to be a problem. But he already has so many layers of debuff prevention that I don't think that a lot of debuffs are going to get through to him. I was going to say something. Let me check this. Oh, right. I was going to say that he's basically lame if he was good. Because even though he doesn't have the skill of resistance and the skill of resistance, he seems pretty much it. He doesn't remove debuff to the allies on head. And yeah, he's a pretty solid unit, I would say. For ARs, I recommend the Spirit of Zen AR, the one that has the Shuten on it, and Oniwaka. It's basically gives them concentration at phase start, which helps out with these rates a lot, and it's also an additional buff to potentially proc his after buff effect. That's pretty much most of my thoughts on it. It's a move slot unit. You're going to want to move him. He's potentially going to deal a lot of damage, but his damage may be inconsistent on debuff heavy quests. But also he's going to be able to keep your team cleansed for the most part of debuffs while he's still on the board and not skill locked. I forgot to say he has innate vertical movement expansion, but who cares about that unless you're getting afflicted by craziness, but I don't think that's gonna happen. It's pretty nice. It's pretty nice that he does have it to prevent him from moving vertically if somehow craziness gets through.
Okay. Yeah, he's a pretty good general purpose unit for debuff quests, I'd say. I don't know. He pretty much locks most debuffs personally for himself, which is kind of funny. With if you pair him with even more debuff prevention, such as with Jamboree Aizen or someone that gives reflect debuff like Triton or Halloween Abisu. Feel like he just might.
You can also give him
what?
You can also pair him with Summer Shiva to give him the charm resistance.
Right, that.
More resistant buffs.
I mean, he doesn't really even need to attack in first base since he can just function just by defending anyways, but yeah, I don't really know how to describe him. He's strong but he's still Thrust Range, and he'll be a bit of a staple if you actually want to prevent debuffs outright rather than just remove them after the fact, like with Chambray Eisen. But I don't have too much notes on him besides that, honestly. What about you guys? Milk? Zalgus?
I just noticed this now, but is this the first DC star you that can hear your defensive buffs?
Yeah, it is the first 3-star unit that can do that.
Okay, so yeah,
That's pretty nice.
pretty neat. Yeah.
That would be good for me, I guess.
Yeah. I don't really like this unit in the sense that I don't really like having to move somebody who doesn't really directly defend or defensive or offensively buff people. I guess it's supposed to somewhat complement Akiha, who nobody uses for some lore reason, right? And I find his CS really strong when I use it. Of course, he also has the J Kagu syndrome of just making your battles eternally long due to his CP skill, which is pretty good. But yeah, it's at a worse rate than J Kagu actually. So yeah, that's all my thoughts.
It's pretty funny that every time he triggers a skill, he says stop. So
Yeah, he says stop or something like that.
So
No, he's just taking debuffs.
I was just doing a small amount of testing with him last night, and that was the first time I heard him. So it's just funny. Even when the battle starts, he just keeps saying stop, and I just thought that was funny.
Yeah, stop or something.
Also, the only one who was stacking earlier was Kirby, and that stopped. So.
Oh.
Oh, I did it! Yes! There's no more static! Yes! I don't know why that happened.
Yeah, there's no static right now, so it sounds fine.
Thank you for checking.
Yeah,
that.
I don't really have any particular comments on Ulaanbaatar. I will say that his CS hits surprisingly hard, just because he automatically gets the 5x multiplier, and the crit multiplier, and the CS multiplier. It's times 40 in total at skill level 1. So it's a 39k snipe attack, but that's not really his main purpose.
He can get up to 80 CP with just buffs from himself, and to an ally adjacent. So if you have a tall map or a short map, he can, and you pair him with Smoky God right beside him, then he might be able to give that much CP to one other unit as well, instantly, to reach 80 CP. Maybe even just reach 100 if you have some extra help on top of that. So that's a strategy to consider. As for
he would like skill Cs, I guess, because 60% off the buff rate. That you could easily get that a lot higher with glint and concentration. That'll make it 90%, and then you could even slap prayer on there if you want 100% after CP buff or after buff CP. That could be something to mess about with.
Oh right, I should also mention this, but Isaac likes Ulan in their relationship chart, so you can use them to complement each other. So that Isaac gets another plus 10%. So that's nice.
Yeah, and Ulan likes to move, so that works out. What else? There's some ARs I'd recommend on him. You can, anyone on the same team, equip the Crafter's Anniversary Attack Down Resistance AR to give them complete resistance to a certain class of debuffs. And remember that crappy Kushi Kuniyoshi pulling AR? Well, it would actually work pretty well on him, so that he can actually pull people in range for his own charm now. What was wrong with that AR was just that he couldn't charm the people he pulled, but with Wilhelm's condition, you can now do that since it's on this right after the turn sword effects.
Are you really like? Are you really like gunning for this charm effect, like this Hakumen sort of like range charm?
I mean, it's there. You know, if you want to use it. Like the only reason why it's not helpful is if they're not in range. But if you can pull them, then it would be helpful.
I think the charm is like that one monk skill that is completely useless that no one ever uses because it's actually terrible in comparison to the main one. Celestial Revolution, that is. That's the one. Yeah, the charm. I feel like the charm is not what you should be using him for at all.
I would rather they stop making one range debuffing skills because while stationary because they're obnoxiously difficult to use.
If stationary slash range is not a very good range, but are there any more thoughts or can I read the comments?
You can read the comments, although they're not exactly talking about Ulam, but go ahead.
Oh, you can just continue talking. If someone has anything else to say.
I wish you didn't invade my polls.
Johnny Test.
No,
Guy Fieri.
Johnny Test hair.
Yeah.
Poop from Megas XLR.
Yeah. Those are very important thoughts to add on in the end. Also, you can get this charge very fast too, I guess. As a thought, that's not directly related to Ulaanbaatar. I do think if stationary could work better if it's just like not such an essential ability. Like in this one, you know, the charm is, or like the if stationary thing is only there to help out the charm rate, because otherwise it's actually just like a liability. So in that sense, you can think of it as a bit better there because it's easy to prevent. But it's also something that you might want to use, and it's not a loss if you can't activate it.
I do think it's funny that for the unit that is supposed to go so well with Akiha, you probably don't want to use both at the same time anyways, though. Because you want to move them both. But yeah. And they both want to be in the front too. Oh well.
Oh well. Alright, yeah, I don't know. He's a good unit, but it's honestly not much to talk about. So you can read up the comments now if you like.
Where were we again?
That is always the question, isn't it?
Yes, spam Isaac meme team.
Yes, that is the one. By Gale.
It's a little under the polar bear emoji.
Okay, I see it. Right. I'm still hoping LifeWonders should make a buff that increases proc rates. There's already many. There is concentration, glint, and prayer, and also specific other specific buffs like the Gabriel
Smoky God.
Smoky God buff too. Yes, it's always the Smoky God.
Okay, but it actually makes sense for Ulaanbaatar.
Yeah. Gale, T-posing for dominance intensifies. Seems like all invaders love making your units betray each other. His clothes look like he came from Fire Force.
He's a firefighter, actually.
Because he has... Yeah, he's a firefighter. He should look like it. I mean, possession is super fun when it's possible to use. Sadly, Unga Bunga Meta will never end. No 5 stars for me this banner, but I have hope for summer events. Let's just say he don't like debuffs. Almost every one of Kit's his debuff hates. Oh, okay. I hate how Wakan Mugen came home when I'm pulling for Tangaroa Mugen. Yeah, that's... That's tragic. Wait, that's funny. He likes the guy that is completely immune to all Invaders gimmicks and Tuaring's confusion. Yellow Akia, but more hotter. Well, I'm not going to disagree with that. Anyone got Heisek twice, or it's just me?
I actually got him twice.
I'm pretty sure a lot of people got him twice, thrice,
Pulling
4
for
times,
Chada.
5 times. Yeah. I just got the one fine and a damn one coming. Help your voices sound like anyone else can control this. Just trying out new sound setup today. Yes, it sounds static. The stop continue guy. I'll have to look at the replay later and adjust it after. I hope we're still intelligible, even if it sounds staticky for now. Rest in peace sound. Needs a puller for stationary debuff skills.
Well,
Yes, it does. And that is all the comments.
okay. Hopefully we haven't disappeared into the wind with their voices turning slowly into robots. But let's just go into the last unit now to prevent that case from happening. We will now be covering Tadatomo. This will be handled by Zalgus.
Oh boy. I have more to say than I expected, but anyway. So Tadatomo comes in as our third story variant after Chained Makan and Valiant Hokei Okamui. Fourth, I guess, if you count MC 4-star. So it's been a while since we've gotten one of those. That's like years ago now. He also brings us another all-round type unit right off the heels of Takumi Nakata, who's actually kind of somewhat similar to in terms of function. So, Tadatomo's kit is pretty simple. He functions mostly as a damage dealer that you don't really need to plan around. Most of what he does is automatic. When he appears, he gives himself Guts and Burn Strengthening. The when appearing kind of sucks for the Guts because it means he can't refresh it, but it doesn't mean he can come in the back line of Guts. Burn Strengthening is a dumb buff. It grants a 1k HP regen while he's burned, but that actually just means it's a 400 HP heal because burn does 600 damage at max skill level. If the burn was skill level 1, you heal for at most 3 or 700, which is still not impressive. Not only that, but Tada can barely even inflict burn on himself. The only way he can actually self-burn is with CS, so most of the time burn strengthening is pretty much just useless. Both of these buffs do allow... go ahead.
I mean, it's not that useful even when it is working, but yeah, that's it.
I mean, yeah, but you could at least try and have it as a omnipresent heal if he were to burn himself more frequently, but no, I guess. Anyway, both of these buffs do at least allow for Tadatomo to fish for his after buff skill. He just has the one when he gives himself a buff. He gives Ardor and Blessing to self left and right. 2 to the left and right for Ardor. The proc rate sucks at 60%, which who was it? Ulaanbaatar we were discussing?
Yeah.
Who has a 60% rate? Yeah. It's not the greatest proc rate. Since he's fishing for it twice with Guts and Burn Strengthening, he essentially has an 84% chance to proc when he appears. I kind of actually dislike this skill. It's useless when Tadatomo's on his own after it wears off because he has no self buffs after his own appearance. So he absolutely has to have an ally to assist him with it after it wears off. And despite that condition and being able to trigger it himself, really, it has the mediocre proc rate. I don't know why it has that.
Because that's tied to spiritual warrior. That's fine.
Yes, I know. Fucking, they gotta shoehorn the blessing into every goddamn kit. I would rather they stop doing that, but no more. So, when move phase ends, regardless of if Tadatomo is moving or not, he will burn in a short range. It's at an 80% rate, which kind of sucks for skilled seeding because he won't be able to get a 100% rate just by skill seeding alone. And that's actually, the burn is actually where most of his damage comes from. from his attack modifier, so it sucks that it can't be guaranteed without Glint or something, even if you skill seed him. When he attacks, he will inflict Conflagration. Since he burns before Conflagration, since burn is when the move phase ends, he'll always get that extra 4k damage, assuming they both proc. He also steals CP and HP on hit, combining that with the Conflagration means he'll deal 4.4k flat damage, which is actually a pretty decent amount. There's plenty of other people who do like absurd amounts of flat damage, but this in itself is nice too.
Well, there are different kinds of flat damage. Conflagration you can actually kill with, but burn you can't.
Burn? I was talking about the HP steal.
Oh.
Not the burn. Or the burn adds, what was it, 600?
Yeah.
So, I guess that's a bit more there for 5k, but yeah, I was calculating purely off of what it adds to the attack itself. Him being able to steal CP is nice, since controlling the enemy CS is always good, and it lets Tadatomo use his own CS more and take advantage, and I use that term loosely, of his burn strengthening by burning himself with his CS. Honestly, burn strengthening is barely even a thing. So most of Tadatomo's damage comes in the form of advantage against burn and conflagration, 3 times for burn and 1.5 times for conflagration. Since his burn is short range and conflagration is when attacking, he pretty much always has both advantages for a 4.5 times multiplier, which to have that always available is very good. He also has evasion piercing, which is fairly rare. Like we were talking with Ulaanbaatar about how he also pierces evasion, but I was looking at the list of units who actually pierces evasion, and it's actually pretty rare. He joins Christmas Nomad, Christmas Jiraiya as the limited unit pierces evasion, and most of the other units who actually deal damage and pierce evasion are pretty limited. Like, I think the last one we had who actually deals a respectable amount of damage is Tindalos, but he has to CS, and then there's Taishakuten, but he's only thrust range. So when it comes to 3 range evasion piercers, we're mostly stuck with a lot of the older units like Huma and Temujin. I don't know why they're so allergic to adding them. Well, I guess they don't want to make evasion too much of a joke. So Tadatomo's CS inflicts himself and enemies hit with burn, and also heals himself and allies for an okay amount of HP. This CS actually has kind of a problem because it doesn't inflict conflagration, just burn. And since Tadatomo's conflagration is when attacking, he actually misses out on the 1.5 times multiplier for CSing. Or if he CSs, if he hasn't already hit the enemy. So that kind of sucks that you might end up missing out on a multiplier just because it doesn't give the enemy's conflagration. Right, so let's talk about Tadatomo's damage output. His attack stat is a kind of middling value of 4,774. It's not super low like Takemina Kata, who has 3,058, but it's on the side of things. It's actually below average based on Nara's stats chart. On his own, he can deal quite a respectable amount of damage. Assuming the enemy is burnt and conflagrated, and Tadatomo has given self Ardor, he'll deal 23.2k damage, plus 4.4k flat damage from conflagration and lifesteal for a total of 27.4k damage, which is a pretty good amount for basically no setup from Tadatomo, since everything works regardless of where you position him. Although, note that since he can't proc his own Ardor after appearing, his damage becomes 9.6k plus 4.4k flat for 13k total, which is much less impressive. So you really need someone else to buff him to refresh it. But presumably you'll be supporting him with some kind of buffer anyway, so Tada's damage is quite serviceable, since the majority of his damage comes from burn and conflagration, so there's plenty of room to buff his damage a lot. So to compare to units other units who can clear columns like him, because that's his main purpose. The first obvious comparison is Takumi Nakata, who just came directly before Tadatomo, and is also an all-round type unit. When Takumi Nakata moves for crit plus, he'll deal 38k damage. When he's stationary for crit, he'll deal 30k damage. So those are both higher. The crit is, just only a bit higher than Tadatomo, but both of these are higher, but they're limited because Takumi Nakata is forced into his 2-turn duration on his short range. And he also has to either move for full damage for crit plus, or remain stationary for crit. Unlike Tadatomo, who has freedom to be ferried by other units if you want, or just leave him in place if you want to deal his full damage, unlike Ulaanbaatar, Takumi Nakata, who has to move if he wants the crit plus, and he will inflict himself with immobility, so there's that too. And at this point, I should mention that our selection of shot attackers is actually surprisingly bad. There are a few old ones like Temujin or Ibaraki, but they rely on poor rates for crit, and they don't even deal nearly as much damage as Tadatomo and Takumi Nakata anyway. Other shot units with potential for high damage, like Christmas Eye-Gear, Halloween Alp, or Jamboree Moritaka, require setup in some manner. Eye-Gear needs to copy lots of buffs from allies, which, at that point, was even the point of comparing. Halloween Alp needs to ramp up for several turns without getting hit, and Jamboree Moritaka needs to move and position himself so he doesn't send himself flying off to the side if he wants to concentrate on one column. And then there's also Babe Bunyan, who, even on turn 1, he can't deal as much damage as Tada. He only deals 23.7k. So Tadatomo and Takumi Nakata are fairly unique for shot units in that they actually do a lot of damage, and they do it very reliably and quickly with no setup, so that's a unique trait for them at least. If we look at other types for columns, so Magic and Snipe, there's more to add to them. Hime deals 14.3k damage, but has the advantage of snipe range and double lock with disabling. Christmas Jiraiya deals 11.2, Christmas Kalki deals 11.6. So compared to typically expected snipe attackers, Tada's damage is way higher, like more than double than most of them.
Yeah.
And to compare to magic attackers, good.
Yeah, that's right. I was talking with Zalgus about this earlier, just how Tadatomo and with Takumi Nakata are kind of making their own niche now as actual good shot range column clearers. Because before then, like, as you saw, they were like an entire multiplier lower to around like maybe the middle of 10k, between 10 and 20. But Tadatomo self-sufficiently can reach 26k now. The problem with him, of course, is just his ardor rate is a bit shaky. So there's some trade-off there. You may also want to just take advantage of giving him like limit every turn, for example, with your Housamo, so that he can trigger that whenever he does fail it in the later turns, rather.
27k.
Yeah.
So yeah, if we compare to magic attackers, there's Valentine's Kengo, who deals 23.2k, but he has to move for the full damage. And then there's Valentine's Willow, who deals 23.7k if he procs paralysis. He can deal 38k if he gets countdown on the enemy, but he can't do that turn 1 without assistance from someone else because he needs more CP. Or an AR, I guess. But if we start talking about ARs and stuff, there's, Tadatomo has that advantage too. So from these comparisons, I would say that Tadatomo's damage output is really high up there, and he does so while remaining really flexible. He doesn't need to move for max damage, unlike Kengo and Takumi Nakata, and he hasn't got a timed restriction on his range like Takumi Nakata. And the all-round type ensures his damage is always relevant, at least until we start fighting whatever that new unknown element that they teased that resists all-round. It's still question mark, but they'll add that at some point. But I can only presume that'll be really rare, so none likely to be super relevant. The bad part of all of this is that is pretty much all he does, besides my Ardor and Blessing, which are in pretty shit ranges left and right. He basically offers no utility for the team. Those other units I used, for example, all have other things to them besides just damage. Takamina Kata offers bind to enemies, Brawn, Ardor, and Adamantine for allies. Otohime, V Kengo, and V Balor can all offer strong debuffs against enemies. Double Lock and Charm for Otohime, Paralysis for both Kengo and Balor, and Dazzling Countdown for Balor as well. And Snipe and Magic Range also have the innate advantage of having bigger areas to attack with, which is pretty much almost always an advantage, unless you're trying not to hit a specific unit, which is niche. And also, Tadatomo has no innate defense except his When Appearing Guts and his mediocre healing. Again, many of those previous units I talked about have many defensive options, be it disabling the enemy or reducing their damage with defensive or buffs or offensive debuffs. So in conclusion, Tadatomo is pretty much good for damage and nothing else. He's very good at it, but practically speaking, you're probably going to use one of those other units because they offer utility or range that Tada doesn't have. Unless you need the damage levels he offers, he's probably not your first pick, or maybe the flat damage. Make no mistake, his damage is really high, with basically no setup, since most of it is coming from his burn and conflagration. But I don't know if I'd use him for a lot of quests. You know, if I had him.
You don't get him.
Yeah. So for ARs, there's pretty much just one that's perfect for Tadatomo. It's the Tadatomo Marchosias AR called Like Father and Like Son. And the important part is that it adds a 2x multiplier against burn, which Tada already applies very easily, so it's an easy way to stack even more damage onto him without any buffs. With it, he'll be dealing 50.8k damage, which is kind of absurd for having no setup. Even without Ardor, he'll be dealing 23.6k damage, so if you're lucky enough to have Tadatomo and also this AR, then use it. Damage is all he does, so there's no reason not to just amp it up even further so reliably. If for some reason you want defensive options on him, there's the Moritaka Tadatomo AR, the Valentine's Dogs, which gives Tadatomo Guts face start, so he can actually refresh his Guts and Ardor on face start, assuming he, actually procs the Ardor. And that's about it.
I would also recommend the new AR from Anvari's shop, the touched Kurugane AR. Not because of the CP, since you'll want him to grind, but it's going to be a low amount of CP in the first few turns anyways, but rather because it boosts AR tokens, which is pretty useful for dungeons when, for example, in the current Blossom dungeon, Kurugane, or Nightglows Kurugane can't really one-shot him by himself, so having a reliable damage dealer like Tadatomo would help. And also because it just gives a plus 1000 attack as well, which will just make him upfront much stronger. And besides...
which AR is that?
It's the touched Kurugane one, the 5-star one that was free recently. Well, 4 shards.
I don't remember what effect that has.
It gives you progressively more CP as the game progresses up to turn 10, but that's not the important part. It also boosts AR tokens, which is good if you're grinding in the dungeons. To speed it up a tiny bit, I guess. I've been using a Tadatomo actually that had that AR equipped. But it also increases their attack by 1000, which is quite good. It is the only freebie AR that does that right now. So you get 1000 free attack. If you have nothing to add.
Yeah, I don't.
I have no thoughts.
I thought you were asking on it. I thought you wanted to say more.
Zalgus already said it.
Well,
did you?
no.
Did you ask for thoughts? I was blowing my nose.
Well, just 2 other thoughts. River Arachne would be good for attack up every turn, although she won't be able to trigger it later. The Ardor later because that lasts for so long. There's also Yuri Chamo with Vigor and Limit. Since Tadatomo would benefit, of course, with more damage buffs, any damage buff except for Ardor. And he would benefit even from any defense debuffs from someone like Israfil or Sandayu, since he also doesn't really inflict any debuffs that reduce defense. That's pretty much all my thoughts.
Doesn't Sandayu have? Well, no, it wasn't him who has blessing disadvantage. Was it?
No, he does have blessing and nourishment. I think disadvantage. They get 50% drop for that.
Oh no, you can't pair them together.
Whatever.
Let me check.
Yeah, I think it should be
It's blessing and nourishment. I'm not sure.
It should be.
Because the ghosts.
Okay, Israfil's still fair game. Israfil's still fair game. All right, it's fine. Just gotta take that weakness.
50% drop rate.
Fine. Not Sandy. I can't believe Spiritual Dog Warrior is now not just a useless skill, but also a detrimental skill.
Well, I mean,
No.
in that case, the terrible range actually works to disadvantage since it's really easy to avoid.
Okay. Do you have any other thoughts, Milk?
I had a few thoughts. I was really annoyed when I saw that Makara video. You know, the one from the YouTube guy who only uses Makara clears, right?
Yeah.
Where he put in a Hada support with that Marco AR. He just one-shot Fushi. I was really mad when I saw that. Because you know, Makara didn't even do anything. And he just like moved, and he just like, and Tada just does like 67k damage. He was using a seeded one, so it's higher damage.
Well, he should be.
I was really
that.
mad when that happened.
I know it's unusually high damage, but that's the only thing he does. He's designed for column clearing. If he didn't have that, he'd have blessing and.
Oh, I mean like.
What do you mean?
Oh, I meant like it's slightly higher because it was seeded. Like I think Zalgus
yeah,
like 50k, but
I feel like a lot of Tadas
the
will be
seeding
seeded.
got it to like 67.
He's like, you know.
I disagree. I was trying to test stuff with that AR I mentioned, the Tadatomo Chojiason, and I barely have any Tadas on my friend list. I had to fish for one from the people not on my friends list, and it took forever because apparently barely anyone actually has him on their friends list or on their selection. Most of my all range page was filled, or all round type page was filled with protagonists, and it was actually very annoying.
I think that's just a fault of you not updating your friend list. There's at least Luther, who should have a seeded Tada, I would presume, since he seeds all as a country. And then there's also Hidden, who surprisingly, for some people anyways, he actually does like Tada and has him. He's working on his seeding right now. And I have a bunch of other Tadas too. Only one of them has the AR token boosting AR, which made me upset since that one's not seeded. But thank you for that one person putting up anyways.
Luther's not on my emulator. He's on my phone.
Yeah, I think it's just an issue of negligence on you
did he
updating your friend list.
Did he even get him?
I would presume so. He always makes a big deal about trying.
Yeah, I thought not.
Oh, okay.
I mean, trying is good and all, but that doesn't guarantee it.
I'm sure he'll try to pull from later again whenever he reprints.
The second thought I had was that this isn't really something that's like valued too much, but in the Japanese community, they really like Tada in the sense of like gameplay wise, due to like ease of use. Like he's kind of just like turn off your brain and just like you do like stupid amounts of damage, and like they kind of actually like that. I guess it's, I don't know.
It's like Takumi no Kaden.
Care about that.
You know, like not only does he automatically do high damage, but also you don't need to move them for it. So it's just they're like the quintessential shot range. Just kill them without you even realizing what they did in it.
Yeah. So some people actually like that, where it's just like, you know, nothing interesting is happening, but you know, it's really easy to use. Like, I guess like compared to like some of the weirder units we've got recently, like I don't know, like Summer
Taishakuten.
Growl, or even like Christmas Benton, who's like kind of weird to use because of his stationary skills, right? There's like some people who just value this kind of like really straightforward gameplay.
Maybe that's why the challenge quests are so bad this year.
What do you guys think
Yeah.
of? Actually, let's say that talk later. But yeah, I can see the value of simple kits too. What's it called? As long as they work in the end. I feel like even if Tadatomo is a very simple unit to use, what he does best. At least, you know, very close to Takumi Nakata. I don't really
Actually,
like units that are
honestly,
kind of middle. What's up?
Honestly, I think he's kind of better than Takumi Nakata in that respect, since you can just move him about so easily. I mean, yeah, I guess if you're just, you know, coin grinding, it doesn't really matter, since, you know, you'll always be in range. But if you're actually like trying to use Tadatomo in a challenge quest for some reason, or you know, or Takumi Nakata, Tadatomo's flexibility is actually a really good boon. There's no guarantee that you're going to be clearing phases in 2 turns with Takumi Nakata, so yeah, I just think Tadatomo's flexibility is very good.
More longevity as
actually,
opposed to Takumi
I
Nakata.
don't think the opposite
Face.
because of the bind, but that's not here or there.
Yeah, I think you have an interesting take, Zalgus,
Yeah,
too. Because I agree with
Takumi Nakata
Irby. I feel
offers
that
plenty too.
Takumi Nakata is better generally, but it's an interesting perspective you offer to think Tadatomo is better.
The way you word that makes it sound like I respect your opinion, but I think it's wrong.
I don't mean that
like
as fair.
the point.
But no, I actually initially when I was looking at Tadatomo, I thought his damage was unimpressive, but upon analyzing all our other unit choices, I realized that he's basically top tier damage. Of course, the problem is that he offers no utility, and that's really where the rub comes in, is that the other units all offer some kind of utility, and Tada doesn't. But
I guess he can deny CSs.
yeah, I guess that is utility, since I don't think any of the other units I mentioned actually deny CS except like Otohime, because double lock.
I mean, it doesn't really matter in the end if you're using him as a grind unit, since you're going to be one-shotting them anyways.
I mean, yeah, but I'm not talking in terms of grinding, because grinding is very easy. Like, I don't think there's a good metric for how much I want a unit.
It is for me, as someone who spends hours grinding.
You already have Night Glow's Kuruglan. Trip over my words there.
Yeah, you don't even need anything else.
Yeah, you do. It's like for high
Grinding
level
is
grinding.
something.
It's Nyko's Korgane is pretty shit. Like he's not going to be helping for the drop.
You're not gonna
the seed
use
Chestnut
that-
Blossom quests. And even for
it's not gonna
and even
help
for the
there.
dungeon, for like what's it called, for both the seed dungeon and the blossom dungeon, like he can't kill, for example,
Is he-
Volos by himself, and he can't really kill Wakan by himself either. Wakan Mugen, that is. So like Tadatomo definitely helps get that extra damage out.
That's such a.
If you're speaking, you do need to
way
speak
to
close
go
to the
about
mic.
it.
What? Is it just me that values
I'm
grinding
just-
utility?
Probably.
I mean, it's okay, but it's just like a weird way to, I don't know, like boost Tada up. I think.
Here's my
Kurugane
perspective. It's
can
not. It's
kill
not.
Mugen Wakan.
Here's my perspective. It's not
He's
a. It's
not
not a flashy
okay.
perspective, but like he may not work flashily. He doesn't have a million gimmicks or something like that. But just in terms of like time value, like me doing challenge quests in like 10 minutes versus doing grinding in 6 hours. If I'm gonna be using someone for 6 hours, I want them to be like optimal to reduce that amount of time and maximize my gains. Whereas it's like 10 minutes, like making a team for a challenge quest that you could have cleared with many other setups. I think there's like in that perspective of like pure utility, Tadatomo is definitely like one of the better units to get for grinding.
Yeah, he's definitely good for grinding. Yeah.
All right, I guess no one's objecting to that. If that's all our thoughts, which
I mean, he is, but
I think the best way to put it is at least you can put a lot of buffs on him and his damage will continue scaling. Which I think that's already mentioned. I think that is the best part about Tadatomo is that he already has a lot of innate damage without any sort of buffs outside Arter, and that's not even a guarantee by himself, so
yeah, those are both
that's pretty nice
asset stuff.
to have such a high ceiling damage.
I mean, even if he
has
did
the
have
advantage of being short range, though. He has a not terrible multiplier innately.
0.45 is a pretty strong multiplier. Just the third best multiplier, just next to thrust and blow.
Yeah, and it's a pretty high multiplier and can stack with other high multiplier buffs, so that's an advantage, I suppose. It can reach you can reach ridiculous damage levels like that.
Yep, Tadatomo's got it all going for a grind unit. Okay, I think we're talking in circles a bit, so I will just stop the talk there. You are now free to read out the comments, Zalgus.
There's like no comments, surprisingly. There's no Hakenchi Brigade or something.
I'm actually kind of surprised. I thought there'd be a lot more people thirsting or bemoaning they didn't get him or something like that.
Yeah, there's
I'm surprised as well.
There's not even like one page worth or one scroll worth. Oh well. Is Tadatomo the last unit to cover, or is there more? No, he is the last unit.
There was the camouflager, but I decided against covering him because he's not even released in game yet, so it would be very not kosher to talk about a unit's kit who we would only be able to access by data mining.
Spoilers, and also illegal.
Yes.
Got him on the second 10 pull, very good. I think we see transients with the new attributes not until the last book. The last book? No, there can't be a last book for Housamo.
This needs to be the last book.
No, it needs to keep going forever.
Alright,
violin for me. There's still 2 weeks. Looking for transients from the Heliopolis gate. I don't even remember who's from there.
No one. There is none. There is none. There is none. Yet.
Cool. I wait for the rerun saving for summer. Yeah. Apparently there's quite a few summer units who are good, but like popular, but I don't know. I haven't really spent too much on this banner, so I'll probably just wait for the rerun too. Ara-chan, hi. Oh, hey, hi Zebby.
Hello.
Damn, I was so late. Oh god, I don't know if it's me or people's voices are staticky. Well, I'm not hearing any static, but
I will have to
I'm doing most of the talking, so...
Are you, like, listening to the actual playback from YouTube when you're checking, by the way?
No.
So you're just hearing our voices then?
No. My Discord's... I mean, my YouTube video is always muted because I'll hear an echo, and it's more practical to just hit mute rather than mute Discord.
Anyways, they're probably talking about the YouTube side then, which might end up being different from what you're hearing. I will have to review that later. Sorry for the sound issues, guys. Sometimes I try to improve my setup, and sometimes it just makes things worse. But that's the only way to improve, and by that risk. I will investigate it later. You can continue reading.
Waiting for self-burn from CS is just so slow. He will be really good if he applies self-burn every phase. Okay, well, I agree that the self-burn from CS is really slow and stupid. I don't know if I would say he would be really good if he applied self-burn every phase, because even if he would do that, he would only be healing for a meager 400 HP each turn, which is not that much. I think his blessing heals more than that.
Yeah, it's 600.
Yeah, so yeah, burn strengthening is. I would have preferred if they did something like an actual substantial amount of healing, or more damage or whatever. Some kind of thing that makes it worth it to try and CS. But yeah, it does suck. Tadatomo 4-star having better burn application than his 5-star though. I forget how he does it. His 4-star that is.
Okay.
And I guess you guys don't remember either.
Tadatomo's
like move and then it applies at magic range.
I think the move is for burn and then
almost.
conflagration whenever he attacks.
But I mean, considering that Tadatomo doesn't even have to move to burn, and it's still at a pretty high rate, honestly, and
you don't have to
Tadatomo
move, so.
here actually does damage. Honestly, I think his burn application is much better just because he can take so much better advantage of it.
Oh wait, it's a 3x3 square.
Oh, that
star, where you like move him and it applies to 3x3 in front. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, yeah. In terms of pure area, yeah, the 4-star Tadatomo has a much wider area. Zavi said he was referring to the YouTube video. Well, of course he is. He isn't in the chat or Discord call. So,
all right.
And Ritsu says he's late.
Hello, Ritsu. It's all right. I mean, you can just review it after all of our staticky voices. Really, I will go check out what the problem may be later. I can't do that in midstream though. Anyways, that is it for all the units we'll be talking about today. So to close it off, let's just talk a bit about the current event and campaign. Not really event. What do you guys think of the campaign? Have they been giving us enough, or is there too little? What do you think of the units overall as a banner, the quality? What do you think of the Blossom Dungeon? Things like that.
There is nothing. There is nothing.
It's
okay, but I do like Isaac as a unit, and I think Taishakuten is hot. And those are my thoughts.
Okay, it's not the worst banner then. And what's up?
I actually think the chapter 12 banner had better value, but yeah.
That's a good thing that's reprinting now.
You have Sandayu,
Fushi, Sandy, Smoky God.
Smoky God. Kato's like whatever, but
Yeah,
Actually, no.
the auto-meme unit.
but like compared to this banner, like I think the only really appeal is the fact that Tada is limited. So if you want him, you have to go for him now, because who knows when this banner will rerun, other than I guess chapter 14
yeah.
or whatever. Yeah.
It might
So
be a while.
whenever that happens, which is like a year, I guess.
Actually, I guess you're comparing wrong. We should actually be comparing with the prologue banner with the Mugans, Shinny and Temujin. At least it's better than that one.
Yeah.
I forgot that one existed.
The limited bait. Well, the Animate Times article reminded me that it existed, so who could forget?
That.
Housamo being featured in magazines.
It's just the anime website. It's they've actually covered it in the past. I don't think it's really that big, but they got some features every so often.
Yeah, I kind of missed that piece of news entirely. I saw that LifeWonders retweeted something else. I was like, okay, I'm not gonna look into that. I do think the Blossom Dungeon's great, because every other source of it has been either shit or you had to sacrifice something during Anniversary to get it. Much better than getting a chance of a single Blossom from the Node Quest. And a lot more generous than getting like only like 3 from the event shops or 5 from the Empire shop. So yeah, we should have more Blossom Dungeons. I feel that that's the best long-term solution right now to get our Blossoms up, at least until whenever they decide to release Node Quest and the Blossom boosting ARs.
Well, the chance is higher now since you can reset for rewards potentially through the fast task close of the app before the rewards drop.
That's like super filthy. I don't think I'm not sure if I want to do that, but it'll definitely make things a lot less time efficient.
If you're grinding coin and then you like only get one drop per phase, right? Then you might as well reset, right?
I don't know. It's a tricky question because not only is my stamina drinks at a premium, my available time to be grinding is also at a premium. So it's just a matter of like balancing the two in the end. And resetting is not very forgiving when it comes to time.
Just reduce speed to 1.
Stop. Okay. Well, if that's it, then
I guess I can add that we can turn off the AR from the CS effect because there's some ARs whose art I really don't want to see, but I have to use. So I'm glad for that. Now I can just not see them anymore and just see the units I'm using. That's pretty nice.
Oh yeah, that's pretty good because I don't have to hear that stupid squeaky effect
with the
that
leaked AR.
Leaked AR, which is super loud. Yeah. Was there really nothing else? I guess there really is nothing else other than the fact that there's a delay, right?
Yeah, there's nothing other than summer hints.
And the story stuff that we can't talk about. Because
Not from me.
Yeah.
Okay.
Isn't there a crappy release campaign where you get like a comically low amount of stones?
I think it's already over.
Yeah, it's
Right.
It was over last month. We got 10 stones over the whole thing. Whoa!
What?
Then they tend to do
You
that. It adds up over time.
Whole
Okay.
2 units.
All right.
Well, they're probably gonna do the summer stone campaign because we had the early summer, and then they still have to do the actual summer one. Is that like usually 100? So it should be quite.
I think that's usually in July though. So I don't know if they're doing it early.
Well, July is coming up shortly according to LifeWonders time. So
There should be new content
closer
in
than you think.
a couple of weeks, I guess, around that period of time. So look forward to that.
So yeah, it should be showing up soon, I think.
I'll also work on my Invaders clear soon, as well as start recording Chapter 12. So look forward to that whenever it comes. I'm not gonna be rushing that though, since I'm a bit.
It's still not fully translated, so
Yeah, it's up
be
to like the
careful with
first.
that.
Yeah, it's first 12 parts, I believe, or something like that. Anyway, we are meandering, so I will just read out the comments and close the stream. Anyway, this banner is good.
You
There
want to
is
discuss the CQ?
the CQ. It's difficult if you don't blow everyone up instantly, but if you do, it's easy. That's all I can say.
Yeah, pretty much that. It's if you allow yourself the flexibility of just being able to like all range and blow up whoever you please, then yeah, it's kind of a joke.
My grinding team worked out for just blowing everyone up every turn, which is really sad. But then I try to do something fancy and I just get blown up instantly. The reason is obviously mostly because of Fushi in phase 1, where if you don't kill him, he gives everyone like crit level defense debuff. Anyway, let me just read up the comments now. Anyway, this banner's good. There is nothing wrong to pull in this banner. Yeah, it's fair enough. Ulan Supremacy.
Taishakuten is wrong.
I mean, he's permanent anyway, so you're at risk of pulling him either way. He would be quite a good pair with 5-star Infernal Kasuga to apply burn. I wouldn't say he's a good pair. It would trigger it, but it's like, why would you want to trigger it? Ulan! Hi, Ritsu. Your tag for the artist is still wrong, isn't it? The tag is not Tokoro. I'm pretty sure it's correct because, like, I just directly took the tag after, like, talking to him on Twitter. But I'll go look it up later if I remember. Hopefully I remember.
They might have changed it.
That seems unlikely. LifeWonders abusing the limited units card. Chapter 12 looking good so far. I enjoy the translation. I will be reading that soon. I haven't started at all. Grabby Paw. Some part really funny, but yeah, we need an event. Yeah. Ulan supremacy. Jesus, JR, after all these years, yeah, we wouldn't have been deprived. I'm glad because I was on vacation for a while, hence the dearth of content. Sorry about that, but also, if it had to be at any time, the best time would be now when there is no content. Ulan, please save me from this boredom. Thankfully, he came in my pose, so I am less mad. Nice. Oh my god. Some said drop rate buff for dailies. Imagine getting him. Bye guys. Bye. Nice discussion. Thanks for the stream. You can also use normal DPS with anti-debuff support. That's correct. Alright. Goodbye everyone. Alright. Let's say our buys on 3 and yeah. 1, 2, 3. Bye.